Yesterday, I spent 10 hours playing Hollow Knight Silksong, and I'd rather be playing that right now than being here. I played Hollow Knight Silksong all day yesterday, and I have three major takeaways. First, there's a lot more build diversity. Second, the visuals are stunning. It really feels like Team Cherry leveled up their game. And number three, I am finding it harder than Hollow Knight. Okay, so first off, let's get this out of the way. This is not a review for Hollow Knight. As I'm sure many of you know, Team Cherry did not send out review codes early, meaning this is more of an impressions video. Yesterday, I played a ton around the same time everyone else, I imagine, was playing a ton. So I'm just gonna talk about my thoughts so far. For a full review, make sure to come back because Jordan Ramey is handling that, and it should be up as soon as he finishes it. One thing on that I will say is that I'm kind of enjoying the fact that no one really got to play this game early. Everyone's coming in at the same point, and I don't know, maybe there's a bit of nostalgia there for me, but it's fun figuring out all the mysteries and secrets in tandem with a lot of my friends and the internet. You can't just Google what this character does right now and, you know, there's a million articles explaining exactly what they do. There's some secrecy, there's some excitement to it that I'm personally really enjoying. So first thing I mentioned is that it seems like there are more playstyles in Silksong than there were in Hollow Knight. Now, obviously, there's not like stealth builds, you can't like drastically change how you play. It seems like you can now kind of customize your loadout using crests. So crests are something new that basically let you adjust your charm layout. So if you remember in Hollow Knight, you had a set amount of charms you could equip and you could increase that amount. But in Silksong, you get different crests, which can be customized. Each crest lets you equip a tool, it lets you equip a specific ability, and then some supporting charms around that. And then you can get memory fragments, which unlock new slots for different charms. So it really feels like you can kind of equip different builds. Now, I only have one crest aside from the one you start with so far. So one thing to note though is that these crests also seem to change gameplay slightly. So with the one you start with, when you do a down attack, instead of slicing down, you do sort of a horizontal attack. I got a different one, and when you equip that, you do sort of a standard straight down attack, kind of like what we saw in Hollow Knight. So I also mentioned tools, and it seems like there are a bunch of different tools that can be equipped. I've only got one so far, however, I did find a vendor who was selling more tools. I was pretty broke at the time, so unfortunately, couldn't get any new ones. But it's basically like a throwing star. You hit right bumper and up, and you throw it. The thing is, these are limited use. So right now I can only use 12 of those. However, it seems like you can upgrade it as you go. So with tools comes a new currency alongside rosaries, which are basically like your souls, except these do not disappear when you die. You don't need to recollect them. They are permanent. However, when you go to a bench, you automatically use this currency in order to refill your tools, whatever tools you're using. And then on top of that, each crest lets you equip one specific ability. So far, I've got two. One is like the thread shield that the Hornet used in Hollow Knight. You'll probably recognize it. So the other one, she kind of throws her needle and you can use it to get rid of certain obstacles. However, based on what I can tell, it seems like these abilities aren't entirely necessary for exploration. Yes, you did need to use that needle throwing ability early on, but I haven't seen that again. So it seems like these abilities are less for exploration and more for combat. So you can kind of decide which one fits your playstyle more, whether you want sort of the silk shield or you want that needle throwing, and I'm sure there's plenty more that you'll unlock as we go, but like I said, I only have two so far. Another big new addition to the gameplay is there is a ledge grab. So Hollow Knight, for those who remember, and I'm sure many do, platforming is really tight. However, when you approach a ledge, in the air, you have to actually land on the ledge. This time the Hornet can ledge grab, pull herself up. It just makes platforming feel a little tighter, in my opinion. So the next thing that really stands out for me are the visuals. So Hollow Knight's visuals looked amazing. I'm not taking away what that is at all. However, it seems like they really upped their game with Silksong. They took that style and just went as hard as possible. One moment in particular that really stood out was after you go through the tutorial area, you come out and you're in this big green field and all these bugs fly around and it just looks amazing. But it goes even further than like cool little visual effects. Pretty much every area has like a unique color palette and style to it that really makes each area come to life. It's not so much a comparison to Hollow Knight, but it really feels like an evolution. In Hollow Knight, there were a lot of cool areas with a unique style, but it really feels like Team Cherry has gone the extra mile to make every section feel unique. And that also extends to the enemies you fight. I booted up Hollow Knight this morning to reacquaint myself with how that game felt and looked. And even comparing the creatures from Hollow Knight to Silksong, it really feels like the animations are more spirited. There's more charm to it. It does a great job of walking that line between creepy, weird, uncomfortable bug and cute little creature that you need to help. So far, all the designs have been really great. And of course, this includes the bosses too. Once again, I feel like I've only scratched the surface, especially when it comes to bosses, but the ones I have fought have been pretty cool. I think a standout for me, which also happened to be one of the tougher ones for me, was Sister Splinter. Basically, it's this kind of like Cuphead looking boss, I would say, that comes from the top of the screen and punches down and then summons these enemies. And the animations and the actions, it all feels and looks really good. So the last major thing that I want to talk about is this feels much harder than Hollow Knight. Maybe not much harder, but maybe it's the way I'm playing feels harder than Hollow Knight. The last time I played through Hollow Knight from start to finish was last year, and I am finding this to be much tougher. Now, it could be because I had played Hollow Knight before, I was familiar with the mechanics, I was familiar with the world, the design, and this is fresh, and maybe I'm just forgetting what it was like to play Hollow Knight when it first came out. But so far, there are a couple bosses that I have died like 20 plus times on. I haven't hit any walls so far, but as I mentioned, Sister Splinter in particular was very, very difficult. I had to keep running up this elevator, going and fighting her over and over and over again. Finally did it, but it's sort of that same pattern recognition. The moment I finally got it was when I realized, like, hey, the enemies she summons, they always come down from the top and you can tell where they're coming from. So instead of trying to deal with them as I fight Sister Splinter, I just need to attack them from below, get rid of them right away, and then fight Sister Splinter. But I'm really curious to see how the difficulty develops. You know, it could be very likely that this is how hard Hollow Knight was when I first played it back in like 2017 or 2018 when it came out. Or it could be that I just haven't been exploring enough. I will say I have been not rushing it, but I've been trying to do as little backtracking as possible. I've been trying to see how far I can get through the critical path, or at least what I think is the critical path, until I get stuck and then I have to kind of go back and check things out. Now, that said, I have been doing a little bit of backtracking because now side quests are tracked. So in the menu, you can pull up the menu and you can go to your wish page. And basically this is where you can see all the quests you've undertaken. I'm curious how people will feel about this. I think some of that directionlessness of Hollow Knight is why people loved it. Personally, I think it's really nice to have some of these quests tracked because right away you get a wish to collect 3 of these berries, and I 100% would have forgotten that existed had I not had that log in my menu to check. So overall, after about 10 hours, I would say Silksong is a very polished follow-up to Hollow Knight. It feels familiar in the best way possible. So far, there hasn't been any huge surprises that I think some people might be expecting, considering we've been waiting years and years and years for this game. But for me, that's okay. It's more of a very, very good metroidvania style game. And like I said at the top, I am very excited to get home and play more.